Hello, welcome to the Film Vomit Podcast, an extension of the Vomit series of podcasts. As always, we're your hosts, Mac Taylor and Cole Selby, and today we are continuing down the road of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise as we've hit the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake from 2003. And it was like the first remake that came out for like a horror franchise. Like this was the first big one.
Yeah.
And of course would follow for like the next decade would be like 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
Because at the time, a lot of these horror franchises, the sequels had kind of ran to the ground the base storyline. So instead of like trying to make like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 5, they dialed it back. And I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a good franchise to do this with because it did go so far off the rails.
Yeah, it did.
But I think there's other remakes that happened that were like, why did we do this?
Yeah, like the Friday, not Friday the 13th, but the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, the Nightmare on Elm Street. The Friday the 13th remake was directed to the same guy that directed the Massacre remake, which I think is an interesting thing that he did. But I like the Friday the 13th remake as well.
Yeah.
So Cole, tell me your thoughts going into this and kind of what happened, like we normally do at this point in the pod.
It was I was like I said, I think I've said before, like I was excited to jump into this one. This actually just so happens to be the first Texas Chainsaw movie I ever watched before the other ones when I was a kid. So it has like that special memory for me. So I was excited going in. I really liked I really loved like the intro of the movie. Like how it kind of like makes it a documentary style thing in a way.
Tries to kind of reiterate the based on a true story thing.
Yeah.
The first movie did. Like we get the narration, but then like a little bit of like video to make it a little more real.
I was excited to jump back into like some good kill stuff, like good slasher stuff. That was really, really cool. That was a good shift from what we've been used to so far. And it looks really good, honestly. The kills look good.
Same cinematographer as the original 74 film.
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting thing that he came back to do this, because his career had gone so far past Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
But you really can tell, like, because Daniel Pearl knew the vision that Tobe Hooper had in the first movie. And I think this movie feels like that movie just through a modern lens, like through, when we have a lot of money, what we can make a Texas Chainsaw movie look like. But still like have the spirit of the first one in it.
Yeah. And they have a lot of really cool shots in this movie too. Like a lot of really cool, like really neat shots.
Particularly
have
with the hole in the head, like the whole man. Like they do a lot of really cool tracking shots with that.
Oh yeah, that's always a memory that's sticks deep with me, is that whole intro scene. Yeah.
Ooh. So let's go ahead. Let's dive in here. Like we said, opens with the narration. Same guy that did the narration in the first movie too. So I like that they brought him back. I'm sure he got paid more than a joint this time, though.
Yes.
And then we get like that video, like crime scene walkthrough. So we kind of know like what we're in for with some of the gore. Then we cut to some kids at a watering hole. I don't know if this was on purpose, but I know in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they talked about going to a watering hole that had dried up and then they didn't go. I wonder if this was like kind of a soft homage there. Because there's a lot of parallels that could be made to the first film in this film, but like they're slight, they're like small.
Yeah.
It's not overwhelmingly like the first film. It's just there's certain beats that it hits where it's like, oh yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
And we meet our main group, which is honestly a lot more interesting than our original main group. We have Kemper, Aaron, Andy, Pepper, and Morgan. Pepper was a hitchhiker they picked up who wasn't a total psychopath and kind of joined them on this road trip they're taking to see Leonard Skinner.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they play Sweet Home Alabama in the car ride, but that didn't come out until 74. Yeah, the movie took place in 73. So they got like a futuristic radio jam.
Yeah.
And like for Pepper and Andy have already like gotten close, and Morgan jokes about STDs and things. Really, everyone's got a really nice like character dynamic to them. Like Aaron and Kemper actually have a good relationship, which is rare in these horror films to have like a couple that isn't like one cheating on the other, or there's some underlying secret. It's just like they genuinely enjoy each other.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good to do that I feel like it's good to do stuff like that in horror movies, just because it makes you care about, the people on screen actually.
And like everyone's character has some sort of thing to it. It's not just like in the original one, only Sally and Franklin really get enough screen time to have like a fleshed out kind of thing. And even then there's not a lot. Whereas in this, we do kind of know a bit about these characters by the time that their demise does come. So that there is more of an emotional connection in a way. They also have 2 pounds of pot in a pinata that they picked up in Mexico. And there's like, Erin's like trying to be like the mom of the group, but like it was in the original script, she was going to be pregnant, which is why she's not smoking weed with them and things like that and kind of being a buzzkill. But that got written out of the next draft. So it's just kind of like a thing she does here.
Yeah.
And then they almost hit another hitchhiker and pick her up, but she's like clearly in shock and off. Not a good idea.
No.
She's talking about like they're all dead, and she's like got blood on her legs and stuff, and it's like maybe you should have just let her keep walking. And then as she notices they're heading toward the gas station, she blows her brains out, pulls a gun out of like her vagina. Like, don't really know where that was most of the time. And she shoots herself in the head, and we get that tracking shot through like the hole in the head. Like we get like their reactions, and we come like through the hole. Really cool shot. And also the fact that this takes place like during the daylight, we get a lot of really like nasty, like sweaty, kind of gross shots.
Yeah. And I actually did like the shots of like, the smoke shots, like the smoke coming off the gun. Yeah, smoke in the gun, mouth, smoke coming off the gun. Those were really neat.
But even like just the way she was, like her lips were like all chapped, and like she like looked all dirty and stuff. Like the fact that it's in the daylight makes like horror in the daytime is a little more scary, because you don't expect bad things to happen in the middle of the day. So now they have a dead body in their car.
Yep.
And they all react differently. Like Andy's like trying to kind of like make light of the situation. Kemper's trying to keep like everybody together. Morgan is freaking out and being like, we should never picked her up. We should have just left her there. And Aaron's like, we just had to help her. And he's like, yep, we really fucking helped her. She's dead right there. We did a good job. So you kind of see like more of their characters with how they react to this like bad situation they've been placed in. And then Kemper ditches the weed, because that's something they don't need on top of this dead body in their car. So they go to this gas station barbecue place. We've watched enough Texas Chainsaw. We know what this means. And Mother Hewitt is there, and she calls Sheriff Hoyt, and like nobody, like you should be alarmed. She's not alarmed. Like you come in, you're like, there's a dead person in our van. Like she killed herself, and she's just like, that's terrible. Well, I'm gonna call the sheriff, and you kids just go up to the mill. And I'm like, look, okay, wait a minute. Okay, this is not like
like
a small endeavor. This is a dead
yeah,
body. You know,
yeah. Like this is like this is like two red flags stacked on top of each other. One,
Yep.
she isn't freaking out either, and two, she like the sheriff isn't going to come and see the body. You have to take it to
somewhere
him or
else,
to the place
somewhere
somewhere.
that you
You
don't
have
even
to
know where
take
the
it
fuck it
somewhere.
is.
Yeah, like that's not your job. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like at that point, I would like I'm sorry. I would probably have to like dump the body and leave at that point.
So
Like
then,
as horrible as that
I
sounds,
like
like
yeah, like I would
that's
end up
bad.
on the side of like Morgan and
Hmm.
Andy. It's like she's dead.
Yeah.
We're sorry about that, but like this is a shit situation. Like we gotta get
Yeah.
out of here.
Mhm.
So they drive to the old mill with this dead body in their van, and it's a
Yeah.
very awkward car ride.
Yeah.
And so they end up having a jump scare with a possum,
Hmm.
and then they vote on whether they're going to dump her. Kemper sides with the girls because he's going to side with Aaron.
Yeah.
And they decide to stay and wait for the sheriff. And then they find this kid just like hanging out in this old mill.
Yeah.
That's pretty sketchy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're just like,
That's,
what's your name? And blah, blah. And he's like, yep, sheriff's off getting drunk. That's what he tends to do.
Jeez.
And so they're like, fuck it. We're just going to go to this house over here, ask to use their phone, call the sheriff, make sure he's on his way. And they meet Monty, who's like a guy in a wheelchair with no legs.
Yeah.
And he only lets Aaron in the house and not Kemper, which is already weird.
Yeah.
And then he gets like help in the bathroom. Like he was like emptying out his like colostomy bag or whatever.
Yeah.
And you see Leatherface like moving in the shadows. Like he's like trying to mask Leatherface's movements by like causing a commotion.
Yeah.
And Kemper's like, fuck it, I'm just gonna walk. But I also liked that they knocked on the house.
Yeah.
And waited till somebody let them in to go in. Except for but Kemper here, it makes sense because he's like, what is taking so long? You know, I'm just gonna go in and see what's up. Like, you know, in the first movie, they're just wandering into this fucking house.
Yeah.
In this movie, they actually have probable cause when they actually go to the house.
Yeah, like this time they're actually being murdered. Like there's a case now.
Yeah, like I liked that they kind of fixed that in this movie. Like these kids aren't stupid.
Yeah,
they just.
I mean, well, they've made bad decisions.
They made bad decisions, but not like glaringly. Like dumb things that you should never ever do.
Yeah.
So Kemper walks in and he sees like all the the meat and like the fucking weird shit. Yeah. And then he sees like cartoons playing in a room, and then Leatherface pops up behind him and sledges him. So we get another classic sledge seizure scene. And he drags him to the meat room. And meanwhile, after that happened, Hoyt shows up, gets really weird with the dead girl. Like he's cracking jokes and shit, just being like way too calm about this.
Yeah, it's yeah. And like it's
because he looks at like the hole in the back windshield and he's like, I'm gonna guess that's where our dead body is. Yeah. And Hoyt is played by the late Arlie Ermey, who's like a great actor, like particularly with this kind of character.
Yeah.
Just fucking nails it with being just like very unnerving with everything he says. Like he's talking about copping feels on dead bodies and shit. And he's like wrapping her in fucking plastic wrap and shit. Like there's no care being taken.
Yeah, it's tosses her in like his trunk.
Yeah, because they go to put her in the back seat and he's like, I have remorse for the dead. What are you doing putting that fucking thing in the back seat? Put it in the trunk. That's such a good immediate line. So Aaron makes her way back and notices that Kemper's not there. He's getting strung up by Leatherface at this point. And she thought that he just walked back to the van, like just without her.
Yeah.
But no, Kemper is not there, but the dead body's gone. And then they hear a car horn, which Jedediah set off. So they find like teeth, and they're alarmed by the teeth. Unlike the first movie. They're actually, they don't like the fact that there are teeth on the ground. That's a very, very nice fix they did there. And they find like old cars and a picture of the dead girl and her family in one of the cars. And they're like, why is all this over here? This seems sketch. And again, they're asking questions. They're not just like blindly going into things. It seems more natural for like a group of like older, like college kids kind of deal, So Aaron and Andy decide they're going to go find Kemper. They're going to go back to the house. And they blow past Monty, who summons Leatherface. And we get the first like real like good look at him with the chainsaw. Comes out, sawing through doors and shit. Really, this is a big guy playing Leatherface too. He's I think the second tallest person to play Leatherface because he's like 6'5" or something like that. Like, he's a big dude. But he's also bulky too. Like R.A. Mihailoff was a bulky dude, but kind of short. Like Gunnar Hansen was kind of like mid-height. Like this guy's like huge and also like thick. So it's like a very scary man coming through the door, literally coming through the door. So and Andy just stupidly falls over though, like has no like sense of balance whatsoever. He kind of lures Leatherface away, and they give this really awesome like chase through the sheets. Because
that's really
very tense scene because you don't know where Leatherface is, and then he actually like manages to get around him and cuts his leg off with a chainsaw.
Like that whole sequence is just super cool to watch through.
Although dumb idea to run into the sheets. And not keep like where you can see the person behind you. But very cool shot.
And really cool effect with like, the leg.
With him running and then like falling onto the and then he gets drugged to the meat room, and like you see where the claw marks in the walls come from and the nails and things. So you're like, we remember that earlier.
I like how they make that correlation with the beginning.
There's a nice little like hint of like things to come. So Aaron gets back and tries to, get the van going, but Hoyt shows up and is like, "Is this marijuana? That bypasses any dead people that might be around here." And so he like makes them all like get on the ground, and then has like Morgan reenact the suicide, like sit where she sat and like put the gun in his mouth and stuff. And the actor who played Morgan like made himself vomit each take with the gun, so like you can kind of see like vomit coming out of his mouth in some of these takes like meshed together. Dedication to that role, really.
Oh yeah, and a very tense scene too.
Very tense. Arlie Ermey really drags it out. Meanwhile, Leatherface puts Andy on the hook, so we get another throwback, getting the person on the meat hook. But this is
we actually get to see the hook, enter. Move,
and he also puts salt on the nub and like wraps it like meat.
No good.
Then he goes to cutting off Kemper's face and making it into his face.
Which I like how they do the actual like flesh faces that he gets in this movie.
They look like actual like old skin. That's been like sewed on to something. Like how it's like turns gray and shit. Like it has it's an interesting look to it. Also, they actually show Leatherface's face when he takes off the old face, and we see that he's got like this skin condition that's like his nose is falling off and stuff, and like that's why he wears the faces over his face.
I mean, I don't know how much we needed like another reason for him to.
Well, I know that this was what they were going for in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and they cut that scene, and they just incorporated it here. Like he's not like he's not like the brain dead person who like has these personalities, or he's not trying to be a woman. He's just trying to
Yeah.
cover his face
Yeah.
with a face. Um,
hmm
you know, it's a different take on it.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah. Then Morgan tries to shoot Hoyt, but obviously the gun wouldn't be fucking loaded. Like you wouldn't
Yeah.
hand one of your potential victims a gun, like with
Yeah.
bullets in it. And then Hoyt just takes him and leaves the two girls there.
hmm
And he like bashes some teeth out and's like mocking him. He's like, "Look, I don't have teeth too. We're like me and you." And Andy's like barely alive at this point, like because he keeps trying to pull himself off the hook and just falls back on the hook, so he's just like slowly dying.
Yeah.
It's very and like the room they're in is like super like leaky, so everything's just wet. That's just the main theme. Everything has to be like wet. Wet and gross. Just every scene has to have some sort of goop and water and blood. Dirt.
Everything's wet and gross.
Wet and gross everywhere. It's a good theme for it. So Aaron goes to hotwire the car. And then like a tire falls off, and that's when Leatherface shows up, just sawing the shit out of the van.
Yeah.
And Pepper has like this this puffy jacket on, and so as he's like sawing her to death, it's like flying all these like feathers or like puffs everywhere.
Yeah.
And it just looks really cool the way they shot it. Because like you can't see him sawing her flesh, you just see this shit flying up in the air, and I just think it's just an interesting way to shoot it. And then as he looks up from sawing her, we see that he has Kemper's face over his face, which is like a fuck you to Aaron.
Yeah,
just adds another level of terror over
it. It does.
So
Especially since it's like a fresh face, so it's still like
looks like his face.
Yeah.
Then we get a woods chase scene, and Aaron runs to Henrietta and Luda. And you should have known when they're not concerned by what you're saying, and they're like, "Oh, no one's coming up in here." And the fact that Leatherface doesn't come up in there, something is off. Do not trust these people.
Yeah. For real.
But instead, she drinks the tea
and
then notices that the baby in the photos with the dead girl is there. She's like, "That's not your baby." And then she passes out because she drank the tea, which of course was drugged.
Right. Yeah. No, don't like you can incorporate, don't drink the Kool-Aid without any other liquid.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, people. Like,
don't take strange liquids from people you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
And then she wakes up in the house, and Jedediah is being punished for helping them out. So he's stuck outside. And Mother Hewitt basically says, like, they always made fun of us, and you had it coming. And it's like, but did they, though? They're not even from here.
Yeah, like.
You're really stretching and why they deserve this,
Yeah, like, I think they're just mad because they look weird.
I guess.
That's it. That's the whole reason why. That's it.
So she has Leatherface take Aaron to the meat room where she finds Andy, and he's like, just kill me. Like, I'm not gonna make it. I'm tired of suffering on this goddamn meat hook.
Yeah.
So she takes a knife, and she actually does it. She fucking plunges it in him, kills him. Very tense, dramatic scene.
Yeah, indeed.
All the actors and actresses in this movie really nail it too. They really sell the horror and the emotion. It's very most of them would go on to have pretty solid careers after this movie, and I well deserve it.
Yeah.
So Andy's now dead. He doesn't have to, sit through more meat hook hanging. And then she finds Morgan, who had a hole in his back, so I guess he was at one point on a hook. He's like in a bathtub, this like red goopy bathtub. Again, gotta have him wet and gross.
Always.
and her and Morgan make their way out. Morgan's still handcuffed. This will come to play later.
Mhm.
So Leatherface chases them, and Jedediah just gives the assist to like give them a little bit of time.
Mhm.
Leatherface is like just sawing through everything, and they run into this old random building, not sure what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And they hide, and Aaron almost gets murdered here. Leatherface has her, but Morgan saves her and gets strung up on like a chandelier and sawed in half.
Yeah.
So now it's just Aaron and Leatherface for the final chase, which is very important in horror.
Yes.
And they, of course, run to the slaughterhouse. Great idea.
Oh, yeah. Everything's just wet.
Wet and gross.
Wet. So wet.
You can get real wet and gross in slaughterhouse. It's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Leatherface also falls, like, trying to run through a fence and, like, cuts his leg. So another, like, homage to the first film. Getting the leg cut. Like that. But it was in a way that felt realistic, like, because he's trying to, like, a big guy trying to hobble through a barbed wire fence would probably actually fall. So it's a probable idea. She runs to the meat freezer, and he outsmarts her here because he hits the button that makes the meat go forward. So she screams when it hits her, and then he's like, "Oh, there she is." We get a very crafty Leatherface in this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's not so much like mentally deficient. He's just been raised by this family to be this way, and he is a little insecure about his face. That's that's about it.
Probably never went to school. So
probably never went to school. He's not book smart, but like he's got some sense to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a very intimidating figure.
Yes.
So then he turns on the sprinklers so you can add more water to the scene, so we can get
more
wet.
So much more wet. Gotta be soaking wet.
And she's hiding in a locker, and we think that Leatherface is closing in on her, but it's really a pig. And then she comes out with a meat cleaver and just fucking takes his arm off. Got him right there.
Fucking that shit. That was a very kick-ass thing to do.
The chainsaw's like spinning, and severed arms attached to it. And then he like just starts throwing it around because he's pissed.
Yeah.
Then he like slumps against the locker of like, God damn it, you fucking got me. Yeah. This day couldn't get any worse.
Man.
And then she flags down a trucker, and then it kind of has a parallel to the hitchhiker in the beginning. How she's like kind of unresponsive, and then she sees they're heading back toward the town, and she freaks out and bails on the trucker, who then goes to the sheriff of like, well, this chick was freaking out in my truck. You should go take a look, sheriff. And she's trying to hotwire a vehicle, and they do another fake. They do quite a few fake outs in this, where we think she's in the semi trying to hotwire it. And Hoyt's coming up to the semi, and then he opens the door, and she's not there because she hotwired his car.
Yeah.
And runs him down, kills him with his own vehicle.
Yeah.
And then we also see that she's taken the baby. So fuck you, random. Hewitt lady, your stolen baby's been stolen.
Yep. It's my baby now.
Try reporting that to the authorities.
Oh wait, I ran over the authorities.
How about that?
Oh, man.
And then we see the police footage where as they were investigating the crime scene, they're attacked by Leatherface, who's still at large. And that was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. I don't know how at large he could be with one arm.
Yeah, and I didn't really like look that much, but I didn't really notice that his arm wasn't like I didn't see a missing arm, but also it's hard to see because it's so blurry.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Very solidly constructed film.
Yeah, not bad.
Now we're moving into the trivia section. So we've covered some of this while we were talking here. Erica Learson, who played Pepper, she, during her audition, screamed so loud that the other people in the building called the police because they thought someone was actually being attacked.
That's great.
So she nailed that audition. They were definitely going to hire her after that.
Oh yeah.
Andrew Bryniarski, who played Leatherface, asked for the role at a dinner party. But like a guy that large asks for that, you can probably grant that. They actually wanted Dolph Lundgren to play Leatherface at first, and I'm like, that wouldn't work at all. Like, you want Ivan Drago to be Leatherface? That doesn't. I don't think it pans out very well.
No.
This Russian Leatherface. Then Eric Balfour, the guy that played Kemper, his last day of filming, he stripped down to just his baseball cap and walked off set. Just as, I don't know, this is a fun joke.
Jesus.
And then Bryniarski, who played Leatherface, ate only brisket and bread to prepare for the Leatherface role because he was up to like 300 pounds when he was playing Leatherface. He wanted to have that, like, you know, that meat-eating figure.
Brisket and bread. This role is just an excuse to eat brisket and bread for a while. It's like, man, I just love this shit, man.
Andrew, why'd you spend $800 on brisket? It's for a role. I'm acting.
It's for a role. The ultimate excuse.
And then in the original draft of the script, Jedediah was going to be killed by Leatherface for getting in the way, which I think would have made it even more visceral. A lot of the gore was cut down.
Yeah.
Morgan's death scene was more gory with him being like sawed like up. But they tried to cut it down because they didn't want to get, like an NC-17 rating. Yeah. Classic horror film tropes.
It sucks that like those kinds of films can like be held back like that. Honestly,
it's not as much of a thing these days.
Yeah,
especially with streaming and stuff, you can usually get away with as much gore as you want.
Yeah,
but, especially around like the early 2000s, they were still pretty fucking harsh on these movies. So then we move on to familiar faces. There's quite a few in this movie that like, and this is only like things I've seen. Like I'm sure that we'll do a movie down the road. I'm like, hey, it was that person from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But until then, this is what I know these people from. Erin was played by Jessica Biel, who's probably one of the more famous people from this movie. She was in Hitchcock, Valentine's Day, Planet 51, Seventh Heaven, and Blade Trinity. So, she's had a career.
Yeah.
Pepper was played by Erica Learson, who was in Wrong Turn 2 and Blair Witch 2. A lot of sequels for her. Wow. Andy was played by Mike Vogel, who was on the show Grounded for Life, the show Under the Dome, and the recent remake of Fantasy Island.
Oh.
Eric Balfour played Kemper, was in the sci-fi movie Horseman, the sci-fi movie Dino Shark, the sci-fi show Haven, and 24.
Oh.
Hoyt was played by Arlie Ermey from Full Metal Jacket, Seven, Mississippi Burning, Toy Story. The guy's been in so many movies.
Yeah.
Very recognizable actor. I think he died a couple years back. Great actor. And then Lauren German played the hitchhiker girl. Did a lot of shows. Became a big television actor. First, she did Hostel 2, but then she went on to be in the show Lucifer, Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, and Hawaii Five-0.
Wow.
Yeah, so she was in every show my mom watched.
That's damn.
Good for her.
That's good shit. Yeah, that's good shit. It's a good lineup to be in.
Yeah, and again, that's a lot of people that were playing like the victims in the movie that ended up going on. You usually don't see that. Where most of the cast of a horror film will have a career after.
Yeah.
So Cole,
they got really good talent for this one.
Give us the final rundown. Thoughts and opinions. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 03.
It is an actually decently made slasher flick that has more than just it has more than just the gore in it. It's more than that, which is good. It's a really good thing that's like that. It's not like it's a fantastic film. I do wish they didn't I didn't really care too much about the B plot about the kid too much.
It kind of got overdone in the remakes. Like it was In the Hills Have Eyes, and there was always like the member of the family that doesn't want to be a part of the thing that they're doing thing. Like it became kind of tropey in the 2000s.
Yeah. I mean, I love, the sheriff character. Really makes the film a lot. It really does. Yeah, overall, I'd give it like a 6.5. Decent, really good movie
Yeah,
for slashers.
I think it's really well made. The writing's pretty good. I'd say it's probably the second best Texas Chainsaw up to this point. Between that and the Texas Chainsaw 2, like, it's back and forth.
Yeah,
because the first one felt like 70s teens, whereas this one it felt like 2000s teens playing 70s teens. Like it didn't. It felt like a 2000s horror movie,
Yeah.
So, and I think the first one is more creepy and eerie and just has like a more like kind of uncomfortable vibe to it. This one, everything's wet and gross.
Everything is wet and gross.
The gore is good. The acting is really good.
Really good.
Daniel Pearl's an amazing cinematographer. He does fantastic, work. It's a very polished and put together movie, but I think that hinders it when putting it up against the first one, which looks so rough and gross and strange. But after we spent time with Matthew McConaughey, doing whatever the fuck they were doing there with the multiple nipples and the robo legs,
Illuminati
and shit.
The shit that did not need to be.
This was very refreshing after that.
Yes, it was.
And the third one had really bad actual like main characters, but it had good like family members. So it's like we got both. I think the people that played the people in the family did a good job, although they weren't like, besides Leatherface and Hoyt, they're not super prevalent in this one. But also the people playing the teens, we cared about them too. I think everyone was very compelling. So like I said, a very solid film overall. So next time we're going to be discussing, as Leia jumps up in a frame, we're going to be discussing Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, which is a prequel to this movie. So we're going to see kind of how this movie gets set up. Is it going to be as good as the 03 movie? No. But I don't think anything will ever get as bad as Matthew McConaughey on cocaine.
Yeah. This the next one's really more of like it ups on the gore.
Yeah. Which we'll talk about it next week. But there are things I think that were unnecessary. that they did. We didn't. I don't like when they do prequels like after, when it's like just tell the story in a linear fashion. We don't always have to be jumping back and try to explain things. Sometimes things can just sometimes a mystery makes things better. Like Halloween, the original one, what makes it so good is you don't know why the fuck people are doing what they're doing.
And now they're just kind of funking up all their timeline business right now.
And the Texas Chainsaw timeline is way fucked.
It's fucked.
See you there. Join us next time for that. Stay safe. Stay nerdy.